Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the weekly analysis for the week of May 3rd. I can't believe it's May. It's still really cold where I'm at, around 4 degrees. Anyways, starting next week, I was able to sell this huge project, so that means I'm going to be a little bit less active on day trading. So that means trading NQ probably just a few hours in the morning, and then after that I would have to go and actually deliver the project, which means that I am going to be becoming a little bit more of a swing trader over the next couple of months. Nevertheless, we have been entering some swings and they have been doing quite well. And if you look at the path for last week, what we expected is a pull down to this area right here, where we had a lot of the walls. And even right now, we do have the gamma in there, previous all-time high, and the 200T. And then we expected to go all the way up to the weekly expected move, which we pretty much did by the end of the week. It was kind of an interesting scenario because I was placing a short due to that upper weekly expected move, and I was not triggered into it 3 times in a row, and each one of the times it was an absolutely beautiful short for 1.8R that would allow for pretty good profits. Nevertheless, what's good is that we follow the system and we follow the discipline, and that is why we are trading the markets in the way that we do. So what do we expect for the next week? Looking at the structure overall, weekly analysis, take a look. We went pretty much up for 5 weeks in a row. Yes, it is getting a little bit odd because it's very unlikely that we go up for so long. As you can see, these things don't happen, but you could also see the strength of this move, right? There is consistent volume, consistent support, so NASDAQ is moving higher and it wants to move higher. From the daily perspective, we also have a very strong breakout from the structure right here. This is the first consolidation, and right now the trend is creating higher highs and higher lows, so that is an uptrend. So let's take a look into the path that we expect for this particular week. Probably a little bit of consolidation, and then we might attempt for the upper weekly expected move, or perhaps even upper monthly expected move. That is going to depend on any type of catalyst that we get. What I'm seeing right now is that Iran has been sending a lot of the proposals back to the US and US rejecting it. But just the frequency and the communications that are coming out of Iran are suggesting to me that they're a little bit desperate to go ahead and end this war. And that could be because they're losing about $500 million every day from all of those oil exports that are sitting around, and they don't have capacity right now to store even more oil, which is going to be damaging from their economic standpoint. The additional sanctions that the US is putting on, and them asking Russia and China and Middle Eastern countries that they bombed previously for help also suggests that they're in a pretty dire situation and they need to make sure that they actually make a deal with the US. So that's what it sounds to me like. From that standpoint, that can be our catalyst overall to actually move the NASDAQ a little bit higher. So what is going on from the economic events next week? Tomorrow we don't have very much in the morning. On Tuesday, we have ISM as well as jobs openings. But at the end of the day, what we are going to be waiting for is the NFP, which is Friday. And this is where we are going to have some visibility into the labor market within the United States. And what I am expecting right now is that we probably are going to get a fairly good visibility into positive labor market, a lot of resilience within the United States, and that naturally is going to feed, well, I don't know if it's going to feed the narrative, but of the rate hikes, because none of the rate hikes or rate drops have been expected for this coming year until 2027. So from that standpoint, it's kind of going to feed that same narrative of higher rates for longer. But that does not necessarily is not necessarily something that's going to stop the market. The alternative path ultimately in here is that we do a little bit of the pullback and allow all of those people who are waiting on the sidelines to get in, because there's quite a bit of money right now sitting on the sidelines, and everyone is expecting that the market is going to go down. But you know, when everyone is expecting that, that's usually not when the market actually goes down. So we take a look quickly into the presidential schedule. I don't think that there's too much going on today. He's only participating in some executive time, doing Cadillac Championship in full time. Okay, so that's pretty much that from the perspective of NASDAQ. A lot of people are pointing now to MES and they're saying that, oh, this is a pinball candle, and technically it could be a star, but at the end of the day it hasn't been confirmed yet. So doing the analysis on the MES from Japanese candlesticks perspective, you have three white soldiers, you have in here quite a bit of consolidation, traumas are allocated for a very strong bullish uptrend. We're just breaking out. Would you be surprised if it comes down to 7,000 and 58? I probably wouldn't. It can even come back to this area right here, 7.9 something, but I doubt it will get there because the pressure right now going upwards. For this pin bar to confirm, you also need to have high volume, and right now what you saw on Friday is that the volume was relatively stale. So essentially take it as a grain of salt. If there was a high volume in here, you could consider it as a reversal candle, but because we don't see too much high volume, we need to wait for confirmation. Every single time you see a pin bar, you want to wait for a confirmation. Confirmation is going to be the next candle closing below the low of the previous candle, and that is still not going to be an ideal confirmation because in Japanese candlestick methodology, what you want to see is continuous rollover that is shown through multiple indicators. But that is going to give you early signs that MES might be suffering. From MES standpoint, what I'm actually looking at is financials. They've been worrying me quite a bit. If I'm not going to lie, if you look at the weekly charts, you can see essentially that it's kind of is moving towards a downtrend, right? So we're essentially made a lower high, and right now we're probably going to go for a lower low, which is something that we've been doing. So if we consider this to be a lower high and this lower low, another lower high, and then we continue going a little bit lower. So if the financials start rolling over, then we are going to see a pressure on MES. From SMH standpoint, people are also talking about, or I guess that was NVIDIA, that also showed a little bit of that structure of on a weekly time frame. That is an engulfing pattern. It is pretty strong in here. It could be a double top right now. That's what it's showing, but it also could be just a retest of this breakout spot of 190, 191, and then continuation higher. Given that earnings are just around the corner, I would expect that at the very least, NVIDIA is going to wait for the earnings before it does anything. If you look at this structure right here, it looks pretty much the same. A few weeks before the earnings, you have the bearish engulfing, money goes down, and then it just kind of stuck around for the duration. In here, again, bearish, stuck around. So there's a lot of buyers for NVIDIA right now. And to me, that could just be a retest of the breakout spot, especially considering that there's a pretty important zone here at around 2012, 2010, where the market is pushing NVIDIA a little bit down. So thus far, not necessarily something to be concerned about. We do have a very strong monthly candle close above all of this. Engulfed all of them, and right now seeing a little bit of this dark cloud cover pattern that's just starting to emerge, and month is early. You can see how in every month you kind of go down before you continue going up. So that is perhaps what we're going to do, is create that lower wick and then do a continuation upwards. And as you can tell from my conversations right now, my bias is quite bullish. XLK moving very nicely, SMH, SOX. But where I wanted to draw your attention to is US oil. Some people are talking about it as, hey, like we are going to go ballistic, but what that looks like to me is a consolidation. But even then, what we're seeing in here, we have a high formed in here, then we created a low, then we started going for higher highs and higher lows, higher high, and we failed to make a higher low, and we made it lower to this low. So this can be a lower high which means that we can go and move towards a lower low, especially with what is going on with the entirety of Hormuz situation. I wouldn't be surprised that's how we might actually unravel. From the volumes perspective, you also don't see too much volume right now on US oil, so that is another interesting pattern. DXY, some people are saying that this thing is going to go back to the low. It broke the trend line, but right now what we're seeing in here is a consolidation. And if you look at Japanese candlesticks, you have engulfing, you have a hammer, have engulfing again. We went up, tried to push through this window, weren't able to push through this window, got rejected from it. Got down in here, and what do we see in here? Harami with a hammer once again in this same zone once again, which acted as a previous support and resistance for us multiple times. So if I were to make a bet, I would expect that we are going to go higher on the dollar and potentially go even to 100. And that being said, if the Iran situation resolves, then we are going to go and retest this 95 area. So that's one of the pieces from the dollar perspective. Where I want to draw your attention is IWM, which looks absolutely gorgeous. We do have a breakout from this structure right here, a consolidation that is emerging. We have a daily box, which is a 4-hour 50 MA box. And right now you had initial breakout, a little bit of the turnaround. What I'm looking for is a retest right here for the box breakout at 277 and then continuation higher. You can see the number of windows. They have been supporting the price very aggressively, so there is a lot of pressure right now to go upwards. There's a no wick candle a little bit lower, but we can come back to it later. We don't have to come back to it right away. So IWM is my number one setup for the week. Other than that, I looked into variety of different names out there, and to me, there were not too many. What was interesting is XLU, so consumer discretionary or utility sector, so power, is setting up quite nicely, but it's not ready yet, right? So we're waiting for this consolidation to start breaking higher through this high so that we can actually go and make an aggressive move. That aligns very well with the data center type of narrative, where we are looking into a continuation a little bit higher. Other than that, also have some GLD, so that's gold. On a weekly time frame, you can see that although the price is going a little bit lower, it still is not, the traumas are still suggesting an uptrend, so there's a possibility for that. KIE retested the trend line. Now we are going back down in here, and what I'm expecting is that we're going to start closing the box. It looks like we already closed this one off, but right now what we are expecting is continuation to go a little bit lower. So let's take a look at some other names. Oklo, still waiting pattern in here. Yeah, this just looks like a huge flag. Uber getting ready for a move, still waiting. Roku actually did pretty well. You can see this box breakout. We broke out over the week, and that was on earnings. And on earnings, we initially pushed the price down, but the price survived, and you have a pretty aggressive move cooking here. Iran is at a potential point from which we can take off, and we just need to break this trend line. And then applied, all of them are setting up quite nicely, so we just have to go wait at this point. One of the names that I brought up last little while, so IGV is starting to move. Palantir is likely going to be the catalyst in here, and there have been quite a few dark pools actually coming in around this area when the price came down here. Then there was a little bit of the dark pools coming in. MU was another play that I recommended. We already passed the first target, and then we are on the way towards the second target. So nothing to do in here. I wouldn't take this play at this point. TAN is still setting up, and once TAN passes through 59.77, then that is going to be a clear uptrend, and we are going for the extension of the move overall. So I believe that this is pretty much it in here. One final piece around the VIX is that VIX right now is at the decision point. It got to 50T on a weekly, 200T on a daily. It's making a decision around whether it's going to go down or higher. And so once we see the VIX close below 200T, we actually are going to see a move downwards. So all in all, not too bad of a week. The bias continues to be somewhat consolidation slash bullish for the upcoming week. I don't have too many names this time around because a lot of things are moving already. So what we are going to be expecting is maybe a little bit of consolidation that's going to allow for creation of those opportunities, and then we enter into the swing names. Other than that, I have been cleaning out my portfolio, moving a lot of the names from portfolio out, so that's I don't have to think about them too much. Let's move into the wrong panel. Yeah, there we go. So I don't have to think about too many names at any given time point. So this is going to be reducing quite significantly over the coming days and weeks, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to take profits from my smaller positions and rotate them into my larger positions. Yeah, that's it from me. Enjoy your Sunday. It's a sunny one in here. I hope it's nice and beautiful where you're at.